This is our Bible project. Hope you enjoy. Give us a wonderful grade, and let's start. Okay. So, hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Tonight, pretty awesome.
Good.
So, the first question: who were the leaders of the Masonic cult, religion, whatever?
So there are different branches of Masonry.
Mhm.
Officially, Freemasonry only has 3 degrees, and each state is ruled by a Grand Lodge. And each Grand Lodge has a Grand Master, which is a 1-year position.
So, a Grand Lodge is like a controlling kind of.
All the lodges in the state. So the Grand Lodge of California dictates what happens in all the lodges in California.
Okay.
And the Grand Master is there for 1 year, and then someone else gets.
Is lodge like some kind of like building?
Yes, even though sometimes different lodges can share the same building, they're just there at a different time.
Okay.
So a lodge is a place where the 3 degrees of Masonry are conferred, and a degree is like a little play where the officers have roles and lines, and then a candidate comes in blindfolded with a toga on, basically,
Okay.
and they're brought through the ritual. And once you get your 3rd degree, then you can join other groups like the Scottish Rite and the York Rite, and each one of those is also governed by a Grand Lodge of sorts.
Okay, and how
It's a little
many
bit
years in
different
between the new leaders of the Grand Lodge?
Everything's a 1-year position.
Oh, so they're only there for 1 year, then they have to get out?
Well, after you're a master, so each individual lodge has a master for
Mhm.
1 year. After that, they become a past master. But the Grand Lodge is like the grand master of all the masters.
Okay.
So it's like it's a monarchy within each state.
Okay, are they voted in?
Yes,
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
I believe they are voted in, but sometimes like you work your way up the ladder, you'll be like the deputy Grand Master, and then the next year you're the Grand Master.
Okay. So that covered 2 questions. Who were the leaders and what are the ranks? Or actually, no, what about the ranks, like the different levels for like normal people who aren't leading?
So there's officers in each lodge.
Okay.
There's like 9 spots, I think. The lowest is the Tyler. You're like the errand boy, which is what I started as an
Okay.
officer, where your job is to set up everything that the other officers need. Then after that, you become a steward, which means you basically bring all the food for the degrees in the meetings.
Okay.
You set up the drinks, make sure all the officers have water by their chair and everything. And then as you move up within each lodge, you have different ranks. Like my last installed rank was as chaplain, where you go
Okay.
and saying the prayers during the ritual.
Okay.
Then there's something called the junior and senior, or then there's the marshal, then there's the junior and senior deacon, then the junior and senior warden, and then the master. So most people will work their way up 1 station per year to be the master of the lodge. But that's not always how it plays out, but that's kind of usually how it goes.
Okay.
But as far as the degrees go, you don't have to be an officer ever. There are 3 degrees of Masonry officially, but then there are 33 total in the Scottish Rite, and a large number in the York Rite as well.
In the what, right?
The York Rite.
York?
Those are like the 2 main side bodies of Masonry.
Okay.
So this is from the Knights Templar degree of the York Rite.
Okay.
The commandery of the Knights Templar is the highest body, kind of the York Rite. Where it's the last degree that a normie would receive, a
Okay.
peasant of the York Rite would receive.
Plebeian.
A plebeian, exactly, before you start being an officer, or the eminent commander is like the master of the Knights Templar chapter, basically,
Okay.
or the commandery. But there's probably hundreds and hundreds of degrees, depending on what groups you join, because there are some groups that you can only join if you have received another degree that you might not even know exists unless you're part of it or invited to it. So I don't even know how many degrees there are total, but there are 33 in the Scottish Rite, 3 in the Blue Lodge, and I forget how many are in the York Rite. It's much fewer than 33.
Okay. Okay. And the next question is, how do you climb the ranks?
Good question. Oh, I want to make inappropriate jokes, but I'll stop myself.
Thank you.
You climb the ranks, so to speak, by working, basically. So after you get your 1st degree, you have to take what's called your 1st degree proficiency, which means you memorize a bunch of stuff from the 1st degree, and then you repeat it to the master, he approves it, then you can take your 2nd degree. Then you do another proficiency for the 2nd degree, you repeat it to the master, you can get your 3rd degree. Then after you do your 3rd degree proficiency, you get it's like a little tool, a little trowel,
Mm-hmm.
like a little gardening tool with your name on it that has symbolic meaning in the fraternity. And then after that, degree and rank are not necessarily the same thing. Because in America, in the Scottish Rite, you get your 32nd degree on your very first day, which is absurd and not how it should be.
Okay.
It's not how it was designed to be. It's not how it is in Europe. In Europe, they make you wait 6 months between all your degrees, so you'd have to spend 16 years to get your 32nd degree. Here, at least in California, they show you only 5 of the degrees, the last of which is the 32nd, and then you're considered a 32nd degree Mason. It's very stupid. It's basically done for convenience, and so they have more people paying their dues.
Okay, so to make more money, they decided it shouldn't be
You rush
as
you
hard.
through. It's like a degree mill. They just rush you through. So it doesn't mean anything. So everyone in the Scottish Rite in America is a 32nd degree Mason. So if you ever hear someone bragging about how they're a 32nd degree Mason, they're just trying to puff themselves up. Like they haven't actually done anything.
How do you get to 33rd then?
The 33rd is a very specific invitation-only honor that guys get after decades of service to the Scottish Rite, whether it's being an officer or
Okay, so it was like first day, 32nd, then multiple decades until you become.
and there's no guarantee of getting it. In fact, if you ever asked to get the 33rd degree, you're automatically banned from it for life.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you have to be invited, and each year they give us, each Scottish Rite Valley gives a certain number of 33rd degrees. It's usually like one or two. It's a very, very small number of people. Yeah. And there are different colored hats in the Scottish Rite, indicating whether you're regular Scottish Rite Mason or what's called the Knight Commander of the Court of Honor, which is a red hat. And then if you see someone with a white hat in the Scottish Rite, that's a 33rd degree.
Okay. Okay. And then
Kyle's question.
Kyle's question: how do you deal with same-sex attraction in the Masonry?
So, there's no explicit morality taught in the lodge besides generally being good, being honest, being fair. They don't actually say anything specifically about, so there's a bit of a contradiction, because they won't address that overtly, but you're supposed to consider the Bible the rule and guide of your life. It's something you're taught in your first degree. But during my time there were two brothers, which we call them the Masons, in Tennessee, and under the Grand Lodge of Tennessee, who got married, and they were thrown out of their lodge for doing it. And this was it caused a schism, if you will, in the Masonic world, because all of a sudden all these gay activists started agitating the other lodges to break communion with the Grand Lodge of Tennessee, which means that people from Tennessee cannot come attend a lodge in California. So I think it was a display of enormous weakness and cowardice. Our Grand Master that year decided that he was going to break Masonic communion with the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. He caved into pressure from the LGBT agenda, essentially, when he should have said, that's not my state, we have nothing to do with this, let their own Grand Master decide, kind of like what our patriarchs should be doing, right, in Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
Even though, of course, this week that's a whole other situation. So that caused problems. So same-sex attraction, and there were gay Masons in my lodge too, so it's not, there's a guy who's always talking about his husband in every other sentence, which is a bit grating. It's like, you just say it once, we get it, you're gay. But, like, you don't get kicked out for being gay or anything like that.
All right.
And in England, I just saw a couple months ago, they're now accepting transgenders. So if a woman identifies as a man, she can become Mason now.
And can only men be Masons?
Yes.
Okay.
Even though there are women's groups that call themselves Masons that have the regalia and the rituals, but they're not recognized as being real Masons. And there are groups for the wives and sisters and daughters and family members of Masons, like
subgroups of the actual.
like Job's Daughters, the Order of the Eastern Star, not Rainbow Girls, something like that. There's some other thing where they can kind of like play Masons, but like they're not real Masons, basically.
Okay. And the next question is Freemasonry a religion?
Depends who you ask. I would say yes.
Yes.
They teach you that it's not. But so the way Masonry is designed is they basically try to take all of the things that the religions have in common, and that's what they teach. And the idea is that anyone of any religion can join as long as they're a good man. So you get along with people you might otherwise not get along with for religious reasons or whatever. But at the highest levels, when you start to understand it's all based on Kabbalah, it's all based on what you could call Luciferian mysticism, most of the 33rd degree Masons who have commented on this have said, yes, it's a religion. But the lower level guys are deliberately misled. And this is all public information. The guy who designed the Scottish Rite, or he kind of architected the modern Scottish Rite, a guy named Albert Pike, he says openly and publicly, we deliberately mislead the lower level guys who don't deserve to understand what's really going on here.
Wow, so they deliberately said, we don't tell the people on the lower levels what's happening.
And if you bring this up to the guys at the lower levels, they can't even process it. They'll just say, oh, Albert Pike was a crazy 19th century racist, whatever. So you can show them that they're the plebes and they still won't get it. That's
they're kept in the dark,
they
basically.
Yeah.
So much so they don't even know they're kept in the dark.
Yeah, so most Masons will tell you, no, it's not a religion because that's what they've been led to believe.
Okay.
But they're wrong.
All right. Next question is,
It's ecumenism, the root of ecumenism.
Ecumenism?
The idea that all one light, many paths, all religions lead to God as long as you follow them. That's a very Masonic idea. which you see going on with Roman Catholicism right now. You see some of our priests or bishops or patriarchs might be into it. It's a Masonic doctrine, essentially.
Idea that all religions are fine because ultimately it's the
Yeah,
same.
it's all the same thing at the end of the day. Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, the light bearer doesn't matter. It's the same light is something that I've heard Masons say.
And then next one is, what about the terms temple, worship, etc.? I think you covered that. The temples are the lodges.
Yeah.
And then worship. Like, is there anything that you're supposed to do every single day being a Mason?
They don't give you a religious life to follow, and you can swear your oath on any religious book that you want.
Mhm.
So I swore my first degree oath on the Tao Te Ching, actually.
What's the Tao Te Ching?
It's ancient Chinese religion.
Okay.
It's pretty close to Christianity in some ways. Like, I've heard some people say before the incarnation, Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, was basically as close to being a Christian as you could get. There's a lot of overlap there.
Mhm.
And then the second and third degree I did on the Bible. But you do pray in every meeting, but they don't use a specific name for God because they don't want to offend anyone.
Okay.
So they call him the supreme architect of the universe or the great architect of the universe. And no lodge can be opened or closed without prayer.
Okay.
That's the chaplain's job, basically. And the master says a little bit too.
That's what you did then.
At the very end, yeah.
Okay. And then, is there a conflict between Freemasonry and established religion?
I would say it's a conflict between Masonry and every established religion. Yeah. The book that I just released a couple months ago on the Masons and their lives is specifically about why Masonry and the gospel are totally incompatible, specifically from an Orthodox Christian mindset. But I wrote it in a way that Roman Catholics and Protestants can also learn from, hopefully.
Okay.
Because in the end, if you understand each religion, because the Masonic idea that all religions are really the same is fundamentally doing violence to each religion's claim to exclusivity, right, in its own way. Islam will say this is the true revelation, Judaism will say this is the true revelation, Christianity will say this is the true revelation, a Buddhist will say I just want to melt into the universe and reach nirvana or whatever. And they're not all doing the same thing. So to assert that you're all doing the same thing is actually very insulting to each group, I think.
Saying that your religion is basically the same as another one is kind of...
Yeah, it's insulting all the apostles and prophets of whatever the religion may be that you're talking about.
Okay. Is Freemasonry a cult?
How are you defining cult?
I don't know. It's actually, that's kind of an unclear question.
I mean, we've already answered that. He sees it as a religion anyways.
Right.
I mean, I would say there are cult-like aspects to it, except there's not like a guru that you follow.
Okay.
I mean, I think ultimately Lucifer is the god of Masonry, but you're not taught that. You have to kind of spend a long time figuring it out, like I did. But it's not based on a personality like the Buddha or anything like that. So I would say in some ways yes, in other ways probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because I was the one that came up with that question, I think, and I was thinking like, is it along the lines of a cult of like?
Yeah, all these
Luciferian beliefs.
some questions.
I would say it's occult, but not a cult.
There you go.
If that makes sense. That's a good soundbite. I should have put that in my book.
Hey, you'll make another one.
Hey, coming up with ideas out here.
Give them extra credit for that one.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
Mr.
hear him,
Carver, listen
Carver.
to the man.
Yeah. Why do certain fundamentalist groups oppose Freemasonry?
Because they understand it.
Really?
They understand what I'm talking about. They've gone beyond the level of the low-level Masons who say, oh, it's compatible with all religions. They've actually studied the doctrines. They've studied what the high-level guys have said, and they've all seen very clearly that it's not compatible. The last chapter of my book is called Masonry in the Churches, where I go through Protestant groups and Orthodox groups and Roman Catholic statements, like papal statements, and they're all saying the exact same thing. They're saying this is a religion, it's not compatible with our religion, it has its own theology, its own soteriology, its own sacraments, and Catholics spent 300 years at war with Masonry.
Okay.
Now they're kind of overrun by them, I think, but that's a whole different topic.
Is there no Masonic theology?
There is. It's Kabbalah.
Kabbalah.
Yeah.
What is Kabbalah?
Kabbalah is Babylonian mysticism that got kind of Jewishified at some point and then became Jewish mysticism. It's
Jewishified.
That's
Yeah.
a great
Well, I
word.
don't want to say Jewified, that's but I'm Jewish, so I can say it. It's Luciferian occultism that presents itself as the truth of all religions. So Kabbalah will tell you this is what all religions are secretly leading to, but in fact it's upside down religion. It's like a shadow of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't tell you about Kabbalah in the first 3 degrees, but in the 4th degree of the Scottish Rite, they openly tell you this is based on Kabbalah. And even then, most of the guys there can't hear it anyway. Like they're spiritually too blind to hear it. And so they'll still deny it even after they've been told it right to their face.
Okay.
So it's a very dark and seductive path that always, like the Bible says, Satan masquerades as an angel of light, right?
Mhm.
Well, all Masons that you're told you're seeking light, we're going to give you more Masonic light. And the light is the light of Kabbalah, it's Lucifer, whose name means the light bringer, right?
Mhm.
So it presents itself as holy, but it's extremely unholy.
Okay. And what about the allegations that Freemasonry is satanic or pagan?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Kabbalah is. So it's interesting because like I learned so much about symbolism and philosophy when I was there, because the Scottish Rite in particular, you kind of learn about all the world's pagan philosophies, and then Masonry is kind of the repository of all the world's pagan philosophies, which is a problem if you're Christian. Like if you're not Christian, then there will be nothing to stop you from joining. But if you believe what Christ, who said, "I am the way and the truth and the life, no man comes to the Father except through me," well then you can't be part of something that says that all this pagan wisdom is equally valid as truth.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's overt Satan worship in it. Like you're not praying to the god of hell or anything like that.
Mhm.
But it's still, that's what it is, because it's pulling you away from Christ. Right? It's
Okay.
trying to push your mind and your focus on other things.
All right. What about blood oaths and hideous penalties of the degrees?
Oh yeah, they're there.
Really?
Oh yeah, each degree has its own gruesome, disfiguring type of penalty that you
geez.
swear for each degree, ranging from having body parts cut off or torn out to there's one in the York Rite where it's like your skull's cracked open and your brain gets baked by the sun or something. So I've never heard of this actually happening,
Okay.
but you do swear a blood oath to advance in the degrees. And the really screwed up part is you don't know beforehand what you're going to agree to, because you're blindfolded when you're saying the oath. And the way it works is the master of each degree or lodge will say a few words to you and then say, "Repeat after me." So you're only hearing 3 words of this at a time. So by the time you realize, oh, this is really messed up, you've already sworn to it.
They're like 23 words in.
Yeah. So you do swear blood oaths, absolutely true.
Okay.
And then you bring this up with Christian Masons because the Bible says not to swear an oath. It says let your yes be yes, your no be no. And they'll play this semantic game with you where they say, well, it's not an oath, it's an obligation. It's like, okay, well, that's just semantics. Like, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. But yes,
Uh-huh.
those are there. And that's true for every occult group. It's not just Masonry. Groups that teach sorcery and witchcraft usually will also have some kind of oath involved.
Okay. Is Freemasonry anti-Catholic?
Exceedingly anti-Catholic.
How so? Like,
Some of them will openly, the 30th degree of the Scottish Rite is all about basically destroying Catholicism,
so,
like very overtly, where they see monarchy and priesthood as fundamentally opposed to human liberty.
don't they have ranks and leaders?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's incoherent in its way. It's all a giant lie. This is the thing. They'll say we believe in freedom and no religious tyranny, but they themselves are the religious tyrants because they're the ones going after the churches. The 30th degree. So basically, the legend of the Knights Templar is big in the Scottish Rite, specifically in the 30th degree, where the Roman Catholic Church rounded up and burned the Knights Templar.
What's the Knights Templar?
The Knights Templar were a group of knights who were accused of blasphemy and witchcraft, and may or may not have been involved in, I don't know. But basically, they had amassed a huge amount of gold and treasure. And the Catholic Pope at the time and the King of France at the time, Louis I want to say 15th, but I could be wrong about that, they basically decided to kill all the Templars and take their gold. And then the Templars kind of vowed this oath of revenge against the Catholic Church, which some people have said that's what Masonry is. It's the resurgence of the Knights Templar and their revenge against the Catholic Church for rounding up and killing their Grand Master.
Okay.
So in
Well, that
terms
was-
of like the idea of being anti-Catholic, is there any anti-Christianity that's like just extreme? Like obviously, like you've talked about how being like leading you more towards like Lucifer and away from Christ, but besides that, is there anything like overtly?
They're very careful not to be overtly anti-Christian, most of the time. In the 18th degree, the Knight Rose Croix in the Scottish Rite, you see Jesus on a wall at some point. It's the only time he's really mentioned in Freemasonry. And they say, surely we can see this guy as basically, like, look what the world does to a man who tells the
Oh,
truth.
this is a play.
Yeah, all the degrees
So
are
in the
plays.
play, there's Jesus on the wall.
Yeah, and it says, look what a wicked world does to a man who speaks the truth. And then they kind of say, surely all can agree that he was a great reformer of morality, whether or not you think he was divine or just a human, on the same level as Moses and Muhammad or whatever. So they're careful not. They're never going to say anything mean about Christ because most Masons are Christian. There's ironically a lot of Catholics who are Masons, but they will kind of lower him. They leave it open to
like
you.
an Islamic idea that he wasn't actually, and
They leave it open
actually
to you.
God. Okay.
Yeah, they won't explicitly say that Christ is God. So it's kind of like the old heresy of Arianism that the first Council of Nicaea was called to combat against, where instead of being God, he's a created being, but a very holy created being. So Masonry is very Arian in that sense, not like Arian like the Nazi sense, different word,
Okay.
like followers of Arius, the bishop. So they won't tell you he's not God. They say he might be, he might not be. It's up to you to decide.
Okay.
Besides that, they don't say anything that violates Christianity. I would say,
Okay.
at least nothing that I saw. Who knows? Nothing that I saw.
Get a bit deeper, maybe higher up in the ranks or something.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of stuff, but who knows how many groups there really are? I have no idea.
What is the role of various doctrinal books like Pike's Morale and Dogma?
I just read all of it to rewrite my book. It's
Really?
971 pages of Gnostic garbage. So Morals and Dogma. So Pike rewrote the 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite. Basically, I think he actually created the higher ones.
Okay.
So he was brought into the Scottish Rite. He's actually a genius, like an incredibly brilliant, prolific. He was a journalist and a politician and a Civil War general and a poet. He spoke 8 languages fluently. I mean, he was like probably 200 plus IQ. I wish he'd been a real Christian, could have been like an equal to the apostles, seriously. And so he created the high degrees of the Scottish Rite because so many plebes were joining the Scottish Rite. He was like, we need to keep the good stuff for the people who really deserve it.
Okay.
And even that now is filled with the plebe ranks. But Morals and Dogma is his own personal thoughts and commentary on the Scottish Rite. So Masons are not obliged to agree with anything in Morals and Dogma. And he says in the beginning, you don't have to believe this. This is just what I believe. About half of it is copy-pasted from other sources, which he didn't cite at the time that he wrote it in the 1800s. But my version has all of his. Yeah, well, my version has all of the citations. A lot of it's from sorcerers, a lot of it's from Gnostics, a lot of it's from pagans. Eliphas Levi was a radical communist and French sorcerer. He's quoted constantly. His books, History of Magic and Transcendental Magic. Because Pike was a Gnostic, so this is the kind of stuff he would read. So Masons aren't obliged to follow it, and some people hate Albert Pike. Some Masons say he's just this old racist relic from the past. But he had a very profound influence whether people choose to recognize that or not.
So are there other doctrinal books besides that?
Well, there aren't really any doctrinal books because even that's not a doctrinal book. What you get is like if you read a bunch of 33rd degree Masons in their comments, they're all going to be saying something mostly different because it's kind of, you can see in it whatever you're really looking for. It's kind of ambiguous that way, kind of amorphous. Where if you're going in there with an occult mindset, you're going to see Hermeticism and Kabbalah and alchemy. If you're not going in with that mindset, you're not going to see those things. So it's very layered. Masonry is very, very layered. And this is why people get drawn into it, because there's so much to try and figure out. Where do the symbols come from? What do the symbols mean? So it's an individual journey for each person. But I wouldn't say there's any book that's dogmatic or doctrinal necessarily.
Okay. Next one is Masonry some type of global conspiracy?
Yeah, I would say so. In Morals and Dogma, Pike says he considers Masonry to be the great peace society of the world, where his goal is to bring all the nations together in harmony, basically, like so that different countries won't fight each other. Everyone can just be kumbaya circle sitting around the campfire. But of course, in practice, it's the exact opposite because they're the ones going around causing revolutions in different countries. French Revolution, American Revolution, obviously all of our founding fathers, most of them were Masons. Washington was a Mason, all of his generals were Scottish Rite.
Wait, really?
Oh yeah, this country is a Masonic experiment, essentially.
Oh, wow.
So when you look at what Masonry does around the world, it goes after churches, it goes after kings, it goes after anything resembling pious monarchy.
Well, that's why I say it's like a Masonic experiment because we beat the
exactly.
king.
We get to decide what the rules are.
Okay.
Is basically the Masonic or Enlightenment kind of philosophy.
Okay.
So I would say they're trying to be like the New World Order of peace and goodness, but it's actually exceedingly tyrannical. Because we have to remember, when someone is fooled by Satan, they're usually not even conscious of what they're doing. They're just acting on behalf of their master, whether they realize it or not. So they might think they're doing the right thing, when in reality they're shattering the world and hurting people. So I think that's largely what's happening. Now, I don't hate Masons. I still have plenty of friends who are Masons. Most of them, I would say 99% of them are good guys. They go to the lodge, they like to work hard, hang out with the boys, get away from the wife for a night or whatever. Sometimes bring the wife, sometimes not. So they're not like malicious people, but they're still under the obedience of a dark power, I would say.
Okay.
No offense to the lady in the room. Wife
Yeah.
comment.
Why did you join?
Because I was curious, I was just seeking truth. I wanted to know, I was really drawn in by the symbolism and the ritual. I thought it was fascinating. I wanted to know what all the symbols meant, like, what is this thing? What is the square and compass? I don't think there's a square and compass on here.
Oh, could you actually show Mr. Conover what that is?
The square and compass?
No, the sword and everything.
So this is the sword from the Knights Templar degree, which I was not allowed to dress with because this is gold, and I didn't realize I was not ranked enough to wear this. I was not the eminent commander. So I bought this from this is a Templar sword, but it was from a craftsman on eBay, a Masonic craftsman on eBay. But when you're an officer in the Knights Templar, you do carry a sword. Usually, I should have gotten a silver one though. And this is so it says Sir Knight Michael Woodcock, because you get knighted as a Templar as part of the degree. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I didn't throw away all my Masonic stuff just in case just in case anyone ever questioned my credentials. I could say, no, look, I still have all this stuff. So I threw away my rings and my lapel pins, which I really loved at the time. I decorate my suits with all the little gold symbols and whatnot. Feel like you're pretty cool.
Pretty cool Mason.
Pretty cool Mason, yeah. It's funny that in one of the degrees they specifically tell you not to do that, so that I kind of got embarrassed.
Oh.
But I joined because I've always just been a curious person. I would move around the country every 6 months or a year, just kind of doing whatever I wanted with my life. I had no stable thing anywhere or family, I have a family, but not like kids and a wife or anything. So I didn't have roots anywhere. I could just move. If I was interested in something, I'd go there and learn about it. And it just kind of drew me in, and I learned a lot. I'm grateful for the experience because I was surrounded by these professional guys, established guys, learned how to think better, I would say, because I was into drugs at the time. So my brain was all mushy, and I learned how to think symbolically. And in a certain sense, it kind of introduced me to the scriptures just because you're hearing some in the lodge. Like when a chaplain is reading a prayer, those were really the first Christian prayers I'd ever heard. Because the holy and unholy things are mixed. This is how Satan works. He very, very rarely shows up as a devil and says, "Let's hang out with the devil." Usually it's seductive.
Hidden.
It's hidden, exactly. Now there are groups like the Church of Satan, the Temple of Set, that are openly satanic, but that's like the minority of how he works in the world. Most of the time he's preaching virtue and hiding sin, I would say.
Okay. How did you join? How did you start in Masonry?
So you ask.
Yeah.
And they said I had to have lived here for a year. I said, well, I just moved back from Hawaii because I moved here from Hawaii. And they said, well, you haven't lived here a year. I said, all right, well, what if I just save another couple months? And they agreed to let me join. And I was a hippie at the time. I had long hair and worked at Greenpeace and everything.
Big difference, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. All my long hair moved down here now.
Yeah.
So I joined, and they were all really nice. And I like that they don't. There's a lot of good to Masonry. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's all evil. I like that you are treated as an individual person regardless of your social class or your wealth or your race or your religion or anything. I like that you should treat people not based on these external characteristics. I think is a good thing. So I like that because I could be surrounded by multimillionaires. I'm coming in with my Greenpeace salary and being treated like a full member. I like that, being treated with respect and just learning how to conduct yourself like a man in that way, like a gentleman in a sense. And I like dressing in suits all the time. I love suits. Yeah. So it's cool. Like you dress in a suit, walk around with a sword, like it's pretty cool.
I'm just gonna start dressing like that.
I'm telling you, man, if you start dressing in a suit in high school, dude, you're gonna be.
We have to wear uniforms.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
What is the school you guys go to?
Christian high school.
Yeah, Christian high.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
people treat you differently in a suit than in a t-shirt. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're carrying a sword.
Especially,
yeah, if you got a sword.
Well, the full costumes of the Knights Templar officers, they're like probably $500 or $600 because there's like this hat with these feathers, and you have to get a double-breasted coat so that you can have like a sling that you attach the sword to, like through your suit pocket. Mm-hmm. So I never went that all out because I thought that group was actually really boring and lame. But yeah, things get expensive there for sure. Okay. And to get the 33rd degree, I'm told, is like you got to make like a $20,000 donation even after you're invited.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Thanks. How did you initially hear about Freemasonry? I'm sorry, I'm tired.
No.
Hear about Freemasonry?
Because when I was canvassing at Greenpeace, going door to door, pitching people to save whales or bees or whatever the thing was that I was saving that week, one of the guys who I pitched had a square and compass on the wall, a Masonic logo. I said, "What is this?" And he was very vague about it, very cryptic about it. Oh, it's masonry. What is that? Oh, you know. I'm like, no, I don't know. What is it? And he wouldn't answer my questions, which, get my mind in motion. I have to learn more, I have to know more. And I knew my great-grandfather was a Mason too. And so one day after work, me and another girl from Greenpeace, a co-worker, no, I said another girl, me and the girl from Greenpeace.
Another one of
Yeah, it's California, you never know how you identify here.
Yeah.
See, this is why I said the video, I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't.
No, it's okay.
Conover,
Don't worry about it. Mr. Conover
Okay,
talks
good.
about that all the time, don't you, Kevin?
Okay, perfect. So we went to the lodge, and she was like super feminist, so it was hilarious because the first thing that the guy said when we walked in was, "You can't join because you're a woman." And her face just turned beet red, and she wanted to say something so bad, but
She's been flamed.
She was
That's
flamed.
Mr. Conover in
Yeah.
class.
Then he said, "But you can join." I was like.
Yeah.
And so I just asked him, like, what is this place? Like, there's an energy in a lodge that at first I really loved and ended up feeling very dark and oppressive to me once I became Christian. But you feel something in the lodge. I said, what is this? And it's like the energy of Lucifer, I know now. And they were all very nice, these old guys, 70 years old, 80 years old, nice, respectful, telling me stuff and speaking in codes, like the 3rd degree is higher than the 33rd degree, they said. And I said, what? So then I had to know more. So I was just, my curiosity got the better of me is the short answer to how I joined.
Do you believe in an okay. This is like things meant for non-Christians.
Okay.
He is a practicing Greek Orthodox like me.
They go to church together, Kevin.
Yeah,
we
just
do.
to let you know.
Do you believe in an afterlife of some sort?
Of course.
Yeah, obviously, yes.
That's actually a requirement for being a Mason too.
Really?
You have, so the requirements to be a Mason, you have to be a man, 18 years of age, freeborn, because
What's freeborn?
well, it started in the age of slavery. They never changed the wording. So
Oh, so you
join
couldn't
as
be a slave.
No.
Wait, so you can join if you're black, but
Yes.
you cannot join if you were once a slave.
Correct. But nobody alive is a, well, there are slaves in the world today, but no one in America, I don't think, has been a slave, or very few people alive today. But they never updated the wording. So you have to be a man, 18 years of age, of good character, good moral character, freeborn, and you have to believe in a supreme being and an afterlife.
Okay.
No
Beyond
matter
that,
what that
it's pretty
afterlife
vague.
and supreme
Exactly.
being may be.
Beyond that, they don't care what you believe in. And of course, guys lie to join anyway. Guys who are atheists, they'll still join.
Okay.
They tell you not to lie, but you can't control people really.
Okay. If anything, what do you miss about being a Mason?
I like the fellowship. I like the guys. Like they're my friends.
Mhm.
Some of them were. I mean, some of them are still my friends.
still are, right?
Yeah, some of them are. The ones that didn't like me still don't. The ones that did like me still do. I've only gotten one set of angry emails since I left. The guy saying, clearly you didn't learn the lessons of love and tolerance if you're going to be a Christian zealot now. And I was like,
Wait a minute, that is Christianity.
I know. And he was like, if you ever come back to the real light, we'll receive you back with open arms. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this, man. And I was like, if you want to have a conversation about this, I'm happy to talk to you about why I left. Like, tons of guys at the lodge have talked with me about this. I'm not trying to hide my conversion. But he was just like way off the rails on it.
So are you free to just